Hey everybody, it's Jork. Welcome back. It's been a while since I made a video. Happy New Year to everybody. New Year's off and running for sure. I want to talk a little bit about those of you that are going to be traveling to Portugal in 2026, and specifically those of you that are going to be coming and going from Lisbon Airport, which I've made videos about over the years when we lived there, and we're looking at going back because we have some business back there and we're looking to book travel. And I always go on the news to find out what's the latest, what are the wait times, because they're notorious at Lisbon in passport control when you are outside of the EU and getting into Lisbon, or if you are leaving Lisbon, leaving Portugal and leaving the EU. Coming and going takes hours, generally speaking. So I want to talk through about what's going on now at Lisbon Airport, specifically for the first quarter of 2026. Some of the wait times that I've heard over the holidays, which some of that's good, some of it not so good. And then also give you at the end of the video an alternative or some alternatives to think about as opposed to having to fly in and out of Lisbon, which could create just a nightmare for you, which has for tens of thousands of travelers over the years. So let's get into it. What's the latest at Lisbon's airport? So Europe introduced the EES system, which is basically an entry system where they're getting more digital data on you. So that whether people like that or not is not really material. It's what the airports are doing, what the EU is doing. And it seems like just about every airport got this figured out, but Lisbon can't quite get it right, to the point where there were reported as long as 7-hour backups to get through passport control. I mean, imagine that, 7 hours. So everybody's missing their flights. And everyone might be missing the next flight that they could try to get to ping pong themselves to get back to an international flight. I want to make sure that I'm saying too that these are specifically for flights that are outside of the EU. So as you're entering Portugal from outside the EU, have to go through passport control, or if you are leaving out the EU, you have to go through the passport control. And in this case, it's just gotten ridiculous. It's gotten worse than it's ever been. The longest that we've ever waited was 4.5 hours getting into Lisbon on one of our flights. That was 4 years ago. It's usually a couple of hours. Sometimes it's been as little as 20 or 30 minutes if the e-kiosks, electronic passport kiosks, are working and they actually recognize you and you're able to get through. So they've suspended that basically through March. So they're not going to do that. They're going to try it again in March, end of March, April, and see if they can integrate without having people wait for 7 hours to get through passport control. I want to get to some of the wait times. So here's some of the good news. And I don't know, like holiday travel, several people flew to Portugal from the UK who have reported to me from the UK, Canada, and the US. And in those cases, their flights weren't very full. They were traveling on Christmas or they were traveling on New Year's. So in those instances, when people arrived in Lisbon, the passport control area went pretty quickly. Within 20-30 minutes, they were out, whether they used the electronic passports or the regular line. And that's whether they're coming in or they're leaving on those specific days. I will say that there were several couples that came into Lisbon on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of December, and they sent emails saying it took anywhere from an hour to hour and a half to get through passport control. A couple of them used e-passport line, a couple of them used the long line, if you will, regular line. And then those couples just left, actually yesterday, all of them left, and they waited about 45 minutes to an hour to get through. And for whatever reason, all of them had to use the regular line. I don't know if the electronic passport kiosks were out or not. Often they are, which is a pain, so it just takes longer. But those are good times. It's definitely around the holiday season. You're not getting very frustrated and you're not missing flights. I will say up through the holidays, up until mid-December, people were routinely waiting 2 to 4 hours in immigration hall or passport control hall area coming into Lisbon or leaving Lisbon. And that's been going on for years. And so as we are looking 2026, and like I said, we have some business and we're going to take a trip back there to go reconnect with some friends and go take care of some things while we were there. We were going, okay, well, we can get a direct flight into Lisbon. And the first thing that we looked at, we're booking, going, okay, we can do this. And then the first thing that went through our head was, okay, how long are we going to have to wait in passport control before we can get out and get either a taxi or an Uber to our accommodation? So then we started looking, and this is where I want you to consider as an option or maybe an options. We looked at flying direct into Madrid. So in our case, we'd be overflying Lisbon by an hour, going through passport control in Madrid, and then hopping on a flight back to Lisbon. We also looked at Amsterdam, Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, flying in and going through passport control there, and then doing a flight to Lisbon. And what we found actually is flying into Madrid direct was going to be cheaper from our location, which we'd eventually be flying out of Philadelphia. It was cheaper to go to Madrid, and even with the flight to Lisbon, it'd be cheaper altogether. So leaving Portugal, when we're ready to leave, we would be also flying Lisbon to Madrid, then back to the States. And you may say, well, that's a stupid thing to do to get out of passport control and whatnot. But if you're waiting 3 to 4 hours in passport control versus you're waiting 20 minutes in Madrid, we've gone through Madrid passport control, entering from outside the EU maybe a dozen times. Pre-pandemic, pandemic, post-pandemic, no issues. They've never had like a backup or an integration problem. So we're thinking that may be a good option and less stress for people. Yes, you have to make sure that the flight to and from Lisbon gets there and is on time, and but there's a couple hours built into those layovers. So it's something that, based upon how Lisbon Airport, specifically the passport control, operates or how dysfunctional it is, it might be a good option for you in 2026 to think about flying into another airport in the EU and then going from there, once you're already in the EU and you've completed passport control, then getting on a flight to Lisbon. It is one of those things that it's a question I have been asked for years, living there and not. What is the deal there? And I can't quite figure out. There's strikes at Porto and Faro airports. There are issues with maintenance crews and ground crews going on strike. I don't know what it is specifically about Lisbon that whenever there's something wrong, it's exponentially worse at Lisbon Airport. I can't put my finger on it, but when you're going to Portugal to travel and you just want to visit the country, or if you're looking to do a scouting trip and move there, Lisbon is your best bet for flights because it offers the most amount of destinations from that airport. But if you're flying outside of the EU, then it becomes something where it's just you got to get to the airport several hours early because you just never know what you're going to walk into. And if you're flying into Lisbon, it's a complete crapshoot. As I've told people for years now, if you are flying into Lisbon from outside the EU, make sure you go to the bathroom on the plane before you land. Yes, there are lavatories between the gate and passport control, but save yourself some time and just, if you have the urge, do it, because you're going to be waiting a long time and probably holding it while you're trying to get through passport control. I hope this is the year that they get things figured out. I've been talking about this for over 5 years now, and nothing's changed and nothing's gotten better. It's only gotten worse. And what's interesting is this whole EES system, regardless of your take on how it impacts your privacy, because it takes more information from you for sure. In the long run, it's supposed to be easy or easier for people to process people who are outside the EU. But that's not what happens at Lisbon's airport. So I wanted to tell you, here's the situation there. And an option is to look at other flights into the EU, and maybe using those, another airport, a Madrid, Barcelona, Paris, Amsterdam, as your way in and out of the EU, as opposed to Lisbon. Because if you've been stuck in it, please comment. If it's been a breeze for you, please comment. But those of you, if you've been stuck in it for 4 hours, it's something you never want to do again. So I just want to try to make it easy for those of you that are looking to travel and see the best of Portugal in 2026. Avoiding Lisbon's airport might be your best bet if you can. As always, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your travels.